Common pitfall people have when they're trying to communicate. If there's a disagreement or a dispute, is that they begin with a conclusion. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, when you begin a dispute or a conversation with a conclusion, the person you're talking to is quite limited in how they can respond. They can agree with you, in which case I suppose the conflict is over. There is no conflict. Or they can disagree. Now, if they disagree, you risk getting into a debate. Now, what's wrong with that? If you're having an intellectual discussion with someone and you want to explore different ideas, then a debate can be perfectly fine. So it depends on the context, but if this is someone you care about and you value the relationship, and your interest is not merely in just demonstrating your superior intelligence or knowledge, then a debate may not be the best option, because debates are somewhat adversarial by their nature, and they're somewhat zero-sum, in that there's a winner and a loser, there's a right and a wrong, an incorrect and a correct. And so what can happen if you start with a conclusion and someone disagrees with you is that now you're just in this process of just presenting evidence back and forth as to why you're right or why the other person's right. And you're just hoping that one of you concedes eventually, or capitulates, comes over to your side. Now, even if you do that and you're successful in getting them to concede, you may not actually end up better off because of how you got to that acceptance. If it's highly contentious, then you may end up feeling worse about each other, even though you're, quote, right. You were proven right. So if you've tried that perhaps, or if you've done that or someone's done that to you and you didn't really like how it went, or it typically doesn't go well, or it's just contentious and you don't feel very good about it, even if you're the one that is deemed correct, by the end of it, is there an alternative to this approach? Well, what if you just remained agnostic to start the conversation, rather than certain of what actually happened? Well, how do you do that? Well, what people typically do to arrive at a conclusion is that they observe events, and then they connect them. They create a chain of causality in their minds. A simple example would be, you said this and you made me mad. Or you insulted me. You disrespected me when you said this. Those are all conclusions. You've already identified the cause and the effect, which is typically someone else that is at fault. And they're bad for having done that. And they need to apologize or make amends or change in some way. Now again, the issue with that is that if you're on the receiving end of that, it's likely just going to provoke your defenses. And you're going to attempt to identify flaws in that portrayal. So to go back to the alternative, you can share your observations and how you may feel or have felt at a particular moment without adding in the causality bit. So I noticed this. I felt kind of irritated. Maybe they're related, I don't know. But it's been bothering me, weighing on me. So I thought I'd mention it, and we can figure it out together. So do you see how that framing is of a very different type to what I described earlier? You disrespected me when you said this, or you insulted me when you did that, or I'm mad because you didn't do this. With that, with the conclusion that leads to the debate format, you become adversaries. You're competing against each other for who has the best arguments to support their point of view. But if you just present some observations without attaching a conclusion to it, that's sort of hard to refute. And you're not assigning, you haven't got to a point where you're assigning blame yet. You're just noticing things. And by doing that, you're potentially inviting the other person to, rather than becoming an adversary, becoming a collaborator, someone that you have a shared intention, which is to try and get to a better understanding of what happened. Because you've admitted that you don't actually know yet. So by going through that process together, you can both gain more clarity on what actually happened and also potentially strengthen your relationship, whether it be a friendship, family relationship, or romantic relationship, by helping each other figure it out. Now, obviously there's no guarantee that the different presentation, being agnostic, is going to lead to this greater clarity. It still requires that the person you're talking to is curious and interested and willing to take the time to do it. So that may not always be the case. Some people may just, they may jump to a conclusion assuming that you're implying blame, and then it may escalate from there. So there's only so much we can do. You can be the best communicator in the world, but you still need, just like with sport, like tennis, you still need someone to reciprocate something in line with what you're doing. Otherwise, it can't really work. But whatever happens, if you make an honest attempt to try and be inviting and curious and open to alternate points of view, you gain information based on how the person you're talking to responds. If they're interested, curious, well, that's a good sign. That tells you something about what's possible in that relationship. If they're dismissive or they jump to their own conclusions, then that tells you something else. And you may be more limited in what's possible in that relationship. Or you may decide that it's not the kind of relationship you want to have at all. So either way, again, we gain information that helps us or informs us as to how to proceed in the future with regards to this relationship. All right, I think that's enough. I want to be brief today. And so, just in sum, if you're getting stuck in this debate mode because you or someone else is starting with a conclusion, there's another option available if you're willing to give it a shot. Thanks.